Hi, and welcome to Power the Network. I'm your host, Tim Locker, Vice President of Broadband here at CBM. This week, we've got a little change of events. I'm going to give my seat up here, and we're going to bring in Mr. Brett Cooper, and he's going to reverse the roles on me. So he'll be interviewing me. So hopefully we give everybody an opportunity to get a little bit more inside my head and see what I'm all about and learn a little bit more about what we do here at CBM. So let's get right into that conversation with Mr. Brett Cooper.
This should be fun today. So, Tim, thanks for letting me flip the script a little bit, as they might say. I know typically this is your chair, and you feel a little bit
kind of in the hot seat.
In the hot seat a little, and I appreciate letting me sit in at least for whatever time we're here today.
Don't get used to it.
Well, let's get into it. Most people know, listening to you, that you are the host of Power the Network, but we don't. Not everybody knows your background. So let's get into a little bit about your background. Tell us about your current role at CBM, what you're doing, and what led to that change of you leading the broadband.
Yeah. So, I've been with CBM now 17 years. Started in the communication industry.
It's felt that long too, just so you know, but no offense.
Started covering Iowa, Nebraska for the communication team. 17 long years. So now, just after so many years, there's a little bit of, we're kind of a flat organization in terms of, the growth opportunity, there's been an overlap in the markets, especially in the fiber industry, what my expertise is. So, I've kind of moved into a new role where I'm trying to, help our utility group have a little bit more expertise in fiber because there's so much broadband going on and, not just the traditional telcos anymore, but, in that electric co-op space. My day-to-day activities outside of, hosting the podcast, doing that once a month, I'm in the field, with a lot of various folks in the company, support on, demos, kind of bring expertise in where I need to. And, that's kind of my role now. Also, some of it is also we've got our three different groups within the company. We've, the communication and our C&I and our utility market segments that we cover. And traditionally through the years, we've kind of had a silo type rigid structure of that. And there's so much overlapping business that, the goal now is to kind of bring those walls down in more of a, one CBM type of atmosphere, everybody, the way we work, we all win, the company wins, everybody in the company wins as the company wins, the nature of our ESOP is for the benefit of everyone. So, how we're not, our sales guys aren't commissioned. So they're not, a commission guy, there's plus and minus. You take a guy that's strictly making commission and he's gonna hit it hard, but he's worried about one thing and that's himself.
Right. No, and the teamwork aspect's always been a part of it. I know you and I have talked about that over the 17 years, right? And how important that is to what goes on totally. And then with your involvement, I think you've expanded that a little bit.
Yeah. So, that's, when we talk on the podcast too about, being able to share our expertise and put our assets where they need to be. That's what I mean by that team environment. We've got a lot of folks and they've all got individual backgrounds and they've all got certain things that they're best at, right? So, not everybody's going to be good at everything, but we're able to use the best parts of everybody where it needs to be. So that's one thing I think is pretty unique about CBM.
No, and I would agree. You mentioned one word in there, flat, that I'd like to have you just a little bit.
Well,
CBM's
in terms
flat,
of,
but for the folks listening internal and external here to our organization, you can have a really good career in this flat organization.
Absolutely.
And have the opportunity for leadership opportunities of your own. Can you explain a little bit what you've seen?
Yeah, so in terms of just, overall structure, there's we've got Marla as the president, we've got 3 VPs, and you've got inside and outside sales. So in terms of upward positional growth on the org chart, it's fairly flat. But yeah, you're right. Everybody has an opportunity to be in a leadership role. I've heard since I've been here, the message was always, act like an owner. And I think that's very important. I think sometimes it's misunderstood. That org chart and that structure is there for a reason.
Sure.
Marla's got to make decisions at her level, and you've got to make decisions at your level, and so on and so forth. There's a structure and a hierarchy for a reason. Act like an owner doesn't mean, everybody gets to make high-level decisions.
Would never
right?
make a decision, right?
Yes.
Right.
But what it does mean is, you have the opportunity. Let's just take my old role. Iowa, Nebraska, where I started, Iowa, Nebraska communication sales territory. I was given the freedom and flexibility to develop that territory. The better job that I did, the more people would come, the more manufacturers would want us to work for them, so on and so forth. So you really have the ability to create your own kingdom, if you will, right?
Yes, I like that word.
Yep.
So use it often.
So that's really the the value. It's interesting. I was watching. I don't know if you've ever heard of this podcaster. His name's Joe Rogan.
Oh yeah.
Maybe some of you that watch this have heard of him, but no, Joe Rogan's great. I listen to him all the time. But he had Bernie Sanders on recently. And
I did listen to that episode because of you.
I shared that with you. But one thing that he talked about, talking about, all this corporate greed and whatever. But one thing that he thought was would be a fix is having employees that had ownership in companies. And that's exactly what we are. And that's, so we have a say in how we operate.
No, and you and I have talked about that. We've talked. We joked before on one of the earlier podcasts when you and I were together about the difference of that ownership and what it really means and the structure. Yeah. Because quite frankly, I'm a guy who likes that team, right? Military background, we like that team environment. Yeah. I want to take care of the soldiers, right? You and I both feel that the folks that work here, our teammates at CBM, are people we want to take care of. And Absolutely. We want them to want to take care of the company as well, right?
Yeah.
Which is why we're an ESOP, which is why you and I get up every morning and we've talked about it, right? People probably don't realize the in-depth conversations we've had about it. Yeah. But certainly that ESOP and ownership's really been important to us.
It's huge. And it's the reason that we're all still here. It truly is a family. If you don't succeed, I don't succeed.
Right.
And vice versa.
Right.
And so that's really, going back to the original question, what's my role? That's part of what I do too. I travel with a lot of people in our company.
Right.
It's really been good because, in the silo, in your day-to-day world, you're just kind of in your own little gig, right?
Right.
And that's one of the things that I always appreciated. Being a remote sales guy, I'm not in and around the company a lot. So, bringing people in for our planning sessions or for, just a company picnic or, a party at the end of the year, any of those things, it always rejuvenated me when I was back in with the team. And I think that's pretty important, especially when you're dealing like our company, a lot of remote folks. You can kind of get in a groove, get in a rut, if you will, when you're not around the team. Most of our folks, we talk all the time, right? So, it's your phone call away. You've got a lot of time on the road, and so a lot of people talk to each other anyway. So that's one way to connect. But bringing people in, making them feel part of that team is real important. So.
No, and I think you touched on it a little bit about the dynamics of the markets and how they've really merged together. I know one of our largest orders for patch cables came from one of our electrical teammates, right? And so it really has crossed across, particularly with industrial automation and all the things.
Yeah.
You tie all that back to fiber to the home, the utility cooperatives on their own networks. So your position, in my mind, really is important. And your technical knowledge, what people probably don't realize is your background is a little different than most of us. Some of us started in sales.
Yeah.
But your background started more technically. And so let's talk a little bit about how you first got in sales, because we're going to cover some other things. But the sales piece, you started doing some other things first in sales before you got to CBM.
Yes. As Dan Levac would say, I was a knuckle dragger.
Right.
But I always knew, even as a young kid, that I wanted to be in sales. My dad was a salesman. In the summers, I'd get to travel around with him on certain days, whatever.
Right.
And he just always had fun. Always. And he was a jokeable, he's always, fun is the number one thing for my dad. That's how he was and how I was raised. But getting the ability to, just jump in the truck with them, and we'd go out to Harlan. And, at one time, Dad had 13 trenchers in Harlan that he'd sold. From the co-op to the phone company to the cable company to a couple of electricians. And to be able to go out there and see how he, just what his job was. He was hanging out with his buddies,
Right.
And I always knew that I wanted to do that. But at that young age, I wasn't given the opportunity. Nobody wanted to take a risk on a kid that doesn't know anything, right? So out of high school, through high school and out of high school, I was doing construction, worked for a small contractor, building houses, remodeling, those kinds of things. And my dad actually did a lot for, kind of putting me where I am, I guess. I owe him a lot for helping.
Parents tend to do that.
And and I'm kind of in the same position with my son. My son just graduated. He's doing construction just like I was. Doesn't know what he wants to do. Wants to get into a sales role. But I don't want to just push him, kind of pigeonhole him into this, what I do.
Right.
I want him to do what he wants to do. Now, do I have a lot of connections? And probably could I help him align somewhere? Yeah, probably could.
Right.
But I want it to be his choice.
Right. And he'll accept that better too.
Yeah.
That's a good,
for sure.
Good approach.
But anyway, Dad had left Ditch Witch, and he was working for a contracting company. So he was actually installing fiber. They actually did. It was Dixon Directional Boring that he was the general manager of, and they actually did the first fiber to the home project for Huxley Telephone, which was in the town I grew up in. And but so through that, he met another guy that was looking for someone to help him splice fiber.
Right.
And so he set me up with a guy. I talked to him. And he's like, "Yeah, you'll do." He needed help.
Legs, you'll show up on time. You got hands, fingers. You're on.
Little company called Midwest Cable Inc. And so the shirt said Meet MCI, but it wasn't like MCI back in the day, the big telecom.
Right.
So guy's name was Robin Tedrick. Great dude. They were from Indiana. At the time, McLeod was starting to build the ICN network and starting to put fiber up all over, and they came to chase all that work. So I just learned on the job, learned how to splice, learned how to test, was working, across the state, worked for him for about a year. And then we had a little incident that kind of changed the course of my career. I burned a splice trailer down. What's different about CBM? First and foremost, it's our ESOP. Employee owners have more control and more ability to make decisions that are right for our customers and right for our company and right for our manufacturers. We've got the flexibility to put people where they need to be and use our experts wisely. If you need help with a project or need representation from an excellent sales force here in the Midwest, look no further than CBM. You can reach out to us here at cbmrep.com. Like to the ground.
At that first,
when I was working for MCI.
I'm surprised anybody else hired you afterwards.
So
what's the story behind this?
So it was interesting.
Tim Locker mistake, or was
no,
this lightning struck?
It was just a coincidence. So, at the time, back in the day, that was before this big onset of all these highly specialized splicing trailers. This was, an enclosed trailer
got
that
a hole inside of it.
We built it, he built it, I walked into it, but we were about a week prior, we were in Des Moines. And I don't remember specific. I remember there being a lot of people in the trailer. The company was having an issue, and we were there to look at it. So management, and there's 5-6 people. And the one gentleman looks down and he says, "Your floor's on fire." And we looked down, and we had like a ready wall heater type of furnace, and the little connection on the bottom was leaking, and it started on fire. So we stomped it out and tightened it up. Didn't think anything of it. Well, a week later, we're over in kind of western Iowa, and we were out. It was cold, so we were out. We were wrapping up a project. We were doing the testing. We had a couple of fibers we had to go back and reburn to get the testing complete. And so I, get to the first location, get the heater going, take care of that, and on down to the second spot.
I've got this feeling this heater going is going to be an issue, but go ahead.
It was an issue. So it's like 10 degrees this morning. So I'm up in the bucket truck, taking the splice case off the strand, and the little vent lid that cranks up on the top of the trailer, just blows off, flames shooting about 4 feet out of the top of it, and I'm way up in the bucket truck, and the hydraulics are like, So I was literally only able to just get down and unhook the trailer and drive away from it.
You saved the truck.
I saved the truck.
Lost the trailer.
It was, at the time, the equipment was way more expensive.
Right.
At that time, a splicer was $40,000.
Right.
An OTDR was $30,000-$40,000.
Right.
It was well over $100,000 deal, at the end of the day. So I remember I got on the phone, had the little bag phones back then, and I called Robin and I said, "Hey, the trailer's on fire." Yeah, are you there? Yeah, that blue buffer tube, the red fiber, redo that. I'm like, "Robin, the trailer's on fire." Yeah. And it took about 4 times, and he's like, "Wait a minute, what?" I'm like, "Dude, it is burning to the ground." Fire department.
There's no stopping it now.
Fire department came, and it was too late. They literally, the only thing we saved was a set of keys.
Right.
That was it. It was a total loss. So at that point, I was out of work for a little bit because that was a big hit to a small company.
Right.
He had to deal with insurance and figure out what he's going to do. And so I was living in upstairs of a buddy's grandpa's house, an old farmhouse that me and a buddy kind of remodeled and moved in. And at the time, the old man wanted his bathroom remodeled.
Right.
I'm like, well, I'm not busy, so
got a little time.
So I did that. And by the time that was done, I had another job, and so I just kind of went back into construction. Then Sarah comes into the picture. So things go well. We get married. She's like, "You need to get a job." This construction gig wasn't cutting it. I wasn't mature enough at the time to be able to handle running my own business and manage the funds and rob Peter and pay Paul and all that. So, then I actually, shortly after we got married, then I had an opportunity to go to McLeod, and then I started splicing again.
Okay.
For McLeod USA out of Des Moines. So that's how I kind of got all tangled into that.
But then you soon after that moved on to selling some heavy equipment, right? Were you selling some drill rigs and some of that stuff?
So when actually I went for a job interview the day before my wedding. On the way, got married in Sac City, where Sarah's from. And so on my way over, Readers, which is a farm implement dealer, was building a new construction implement dealer in Ames. And I was 23, but I'd known a lot of the contractors in Ames, been around construction equipment since I was a kid. I'm like, this is the perfect job.
Right.
I'm like, you've got to hire me. Well, they didn't.
Oh.
So I went for the interview. Like I was driving to Carroll,
You set me up for that. I thought we were going all in with this one.
They didn't.
Okay.
Then that was my struggles. I was a young kid. They didn't think I knew anything, wouldn't give me the opportunity, and I kept in touch with this manager over the next couple of years. And the guy that they hired was kind of your typical, maybe used car salesman,
Right.
older guy with the pointy boots and,
Right.
whatever. It didn't work out. But
Right.
by then I had moved on. But I knew at that young point that I was going to be a salesman.
You were destined.
I just didn't have the opportunity. So I stayed at McLeod for several years. I don't know, 7, 8, 9 years. I forget. It's been a while ago. But
Right.
I'd left there. I actually left there and then took another splicing job.
Okay.
And so that was for sure a mistake. I met some good folks, and it wasn't a bad job, but I wasn't leaving the company. I didn't want to be splicing anymore.
Gotcha.
Kind of hard on my neck, hard on my back, but so I finally got an opportunity with Midwest Underground, a local dealer there in Des Moines, and they were a case dealer. So you've got Ditch Witch, you got Vermeer, and then case is kind of like number 3.
Got you.
And so I went to work for this guy, and I worked for 2 years selling construction equipment. And actually, by that point, my dad was working for this guy. So he was covering Des Moines and all the good territory, and then I had
The profitable stuff.
I had all the
You
leftover
everything else.
stuff.
Got it.
But I did good. It was a great experience. It was on the road, a lot of travel.
But that background, let's move that a little bit, because that background's what's made, in my opinion, you very successful doing what you do today. Because there's a level of trust with customers because of that experience. And in addition, you're able to roll that over to other teammates, which is what you're doing today in this role.
Yeah.
And that really makes, in my opinion, it's really, almost that technical vice president of broadband, where you're able to come into all of our different markets and apply those experiences you had in the past to be successful today. Would you agree?
It's definitely an advantage. I think more so now with that combined with the experience I have now, it's definitely an advantage, because what I've gained here over the years is just more confidence.
Right.
Splicers are probably some of the toughest people to sell to. It's on the job training. Whatever you learned on that's your favorite. This is what I know how to do.
What you use first.
This, you bring in this other product in,
Right.
that's different, it's scary, and it's tough. And splicers are probably the most challenging people to sell to. But having that ability, and I can literally talk the talk and walk the walk, if you will, they do trust me. There's a different level of trust than somebody that's just selling a closure that doesn't have that experience. So,
and I think our team's done a good job of realizing that's the strength and what you bring to the table. And we've been able to utilize you successfully on a lot of opportunities. If we look back to the larger opportunities that we have today, you've been involved. Our teammates are driving that, right? They're driving the bus, but they've got an expert they're bringing along with them.
I think that's, one thing for the team to realize is that that's where we all have to grow. We all have, our goal should be, we should all be the expert.
Sure.
We've
talked about that, right?
Everybody's got their favorite line and they've got their comfort level, but we all got to get out of that comfort level and try to be the expert on everything.
Right.
That's really what this kind of role has done for me too. It's given me an opportunity to learn more about the rest of our company, kind of out of my little shell, learn about the CI group, those manufacturers, what they do, meet some people, learn about the utility industry. So that's been kind of the best part about, expanding out of that for me.
Sure. No, and I think you've done an excellent job with that for sure. Now, people know the work version, right? But I always think it's important. We talk a little bit about relationships and the importance of knowing people and that relationship. I think some of that goes back to who you are at home. Tell us a little bit about the Locker family.
The Locker family. My mother-in-law first thought I was in the mafia.
I can see that.
When she
I can see that.
Sarah brought me home for the first time, and she literally said, "Sarah, is he in the mafia?"
I wasn't aware that Iowa had a lot of mafia, but maybe I don't know.
No, Feist, I'm not in the mafia. So yeah, Sarah and I met. She went to college at Iowa State. She happened to room for a roommate with a friend of mine's girlfriend, so we got introduced. That's all it took. I've been told that I'm a catch for any woman.
Oh, yeah.
There's a little story behind that.
A little Power of the Network host. I can see it.
We were dating, and I've always loved to fish, and so Sarah and a friend of mine and I went to this little farm pond, and we're fishing. I'm standing there with my shirt off. It's hot in the summer, and I'm like, if I'm fishing, right? And I've worn them out. You've been fishing with me.
I have.
And so I'll wear you out.
I understand there's a difference now between those who know and those who do not.
But yeah, so they were having a conversation on the side, and my friend Casey looks at Sarah and he's like, "He really is a catch for any woman," And so that joke still stands. But we got married fairly young, 23. Didn't start a family until we were 27. So we were married for a few years.
Right.
Had a little fun, just had a little duplex uptown Slater. Always lived in Slater, haven't really ventured too far. But just had our son graduate, Thomas. He's 23. We have a daughter now, too, that'll turn 14 in October. So a little spread between them. It was planned.
Right.
We're just kind of content with the first one, and then it's like, probably should have another one. You were a big part of pushing that.
Yeah, I thought it would be good for you to have two.
That second one.
Yes. But Thomas just graduated too from college, right?
Yep. Yeah, so he graduated from Iowa State, kicking and screaming.
Right. But he got it done.
He got it done. So he started at DMAC, the community college, and he just didn't care for that. Too small, kind of still more high school like.
Right.
But he did his 2 years there and then transferred to Iowa State. And he really grew a ton when he made that change. You could see the difference in just his grades.
Right.
But he finished with I forget. I think it was a 3.5 or a 3.4 grade point.
I think it was a 3.9. I think I remember correctly.
No, so that was mine.
Good.
That was mine.
Yeah. I hear you.
But no, he really turned it around. And towards the end of it, started really taking it very seriously.
So is there any significant? I mean, is there any correlation between where you were in your life and where Tommy is today?
Oh, it's like looking in a mirror.
Okay.
It's like looking in a mirror. Absolutely. And that's probably one of our biggest challenges. We don't always see eye to eye, but it's because we're so much alike.
Right.
So much alike. The kids are very similar. When I look at Alice and I see Thomas all the time.
Right.
But they've got different habits, but similar attributes.
And I think Allison doing well in school. I think we're doing a little tennis. I think she's going to end up being a little tennis star, right? In Iowa.
Tennis.
Is that where we're headed?
Yeah, she really loves volleyball too. She spends a ton of time doing volleyball. Me from just a practical standpoint, volleyball is such a huge thing now, and there's so many girls doing it.
Right.
She's really good. But the honest, is she going to go on and do something with that? Probably not.
Right.
That's the odds.
Right.
Tennis, there's less people, less competition.
Right.
So she probably has a brighter future should she choose that there.
Right.
She's just so good for her age. I just love watching her. She hasn't beat me yet, but the last time we played, I was only up 3-2, and thank goodness I pulled a hamstring and had to stop because I think she might be there. Yeah, but
so I think it's interesting, and it's always been good to hear the stories about your kids, and we've shared a lot of that along the way. But I think for someone like yourself who shows up for the family, that's a big part of it. I think that rolls over to what we do at CBM
It's a challenge.
I think
Yeah.
there's some similarities here.
Just want to say thanks again to Mr. Brett Cooper for coming in and kind of changing the seats on me a little bit. So that was fun for me to be on the other side of the mic. We're going to probably make this a 2-part episode. So we're going to come back with part 2 on the next one. So stay tuned for that. Remember, if you need help with a project here in the Midwest, or if you're looking for representation for a product, look no further than CBM. You can find us right here at cbmrep.com. Thanks for joining us on Power of the Network, and until next time, we'll see you next time.